Good. So the subject for me for today is developing BIM Team Structure in a large architectural practice which I represent. It's EPR Architects. Nearly 250 people are at the moment. We are the London-based practice with 75 years on the market, with a lot of experience in residential, in offices, and in the hotels. And we are mostly known as an executive architect, so taking the job from the others mostly and delivering on site, so proving it's doable, which is a very valuable thing, obviously. Gaining efficiency, gaining value engineering and stuff like that. But not only this, we also work from zero to hero, if I may say so. So from very early concepts towards the last delivery on site. We deal with extremely hardcore buildings from time to time, which are the heritage ones, especially in this all digitalized world. It's complicated, right, to get on board with such buildings and to deliver things in the existing environment. But not only that, working as said, from the biggest scale, which is the master planning, to the smaller possible scale, which is the interior design experience too. So as architectural practice, we've been working through the years with traditional architectural tools, right? So I've got colleagues in the company who remember how it was to use the pencil and the paper, and this is how we work indeed. Until these days, we work with traditional samples, just touching them, choosing the right color, the right texture, structure, and so on and so forth. We work with sketches, which still are a very valuable form of delivering things for the clients. This is what they believe the architects should do, and we deal with the physical models. We've got a model makers workshop in our studio in London, and this is how we work through the years. But somehow on top of that, there is this whole magical BIM thing coming in more than 10 years ago, I should say, and it's especially difficult that it is delivered by the guy from Poland. I'm referring to myself as I am the head of BIM for EPR Architects, working in the Polish studio. The second one to open for EPR, the third one we now got in the Manchester. And this is where we are at the moment. So I am the architect, I am the head of BIM and associate director for EPR Architects. I am the organizer of similar conferences in Poland, so it's a bottom-up idea that I promote, gathering all the BIMsters and guys interested in BIM as such in the building industry in Poland. I am the tutor and lecturer on the postmaster studies in this respect, and one of the Autodesk certified instructors too. When I joined EPR, I was firstly the architectural assistant, and this is the background we prefer, to have someone who is knowledgeable in architecture in general, but with an appetite to become a BIM whoever. As a BIM coordinator, the first one for the Wrocław studio, for Polish studio, I thought, okay, so let me become a coordinator, because somehow naturally I've been helping people around me. The studio was like 10, 15, 20, growing significantly and very rapidly. And I thought, okay, I'll become the first BIM coordinator. I will create all the library components that are possible to serve architecture, and the job is done, right? I can leave the practice or die, whatever. This was the dream of a BIM coordinator. But it's not. Then I became a BIM manager because I said the studio was growing, obviously, right? We've got a bunch of BIM coordinators, so there needed to be someone to look after them, like even, let's say, formally, right? Accept their leaves, whatever, right? So I became a BIM manager firstly, and I said again, okay, BIM manager, someone more to look holistically, look on strategy. So again, let me create all the possible templates for all the possible documents that are now, I would say, required by ISO norm, previously by PAS and BS. And yeah, my job is done, I can die or move on to the other practice. And finally, as the studios were growing, I became a head of BIM, and now I am the one to deal with all the three aspects here, right? And it's a never-ending story. We've got people now who are constantly changing. We've got the newbies who are coming without any knowledge, and that's, to be honest, a preference from our side to hire those youths, I would say, right, with the ability to be trained towards our standards, methods, and procedures. Just teach them how we work, and make them proper coordinators, then managers, etc., etc. So that's my reality, dealing with standards documents, with modeling on a daily basis, and with people especially. How it's been through the years, and let me capture this time that I remember. So 2011, we've been a practice of maybe 120 users, and we've been based in London. Then in 2015, they've made a decision to set up another studio in Wrocław to diversify the markets as well and to get more specialists from that market. And the third one, 5 years after, in Manchester. So there's also some layer of some level of complexity being in 3 studios separately and not having this experience in the past, right? It was just London 10 years ago or 15 years ago. It's now the 3 that need to cooperate together and serve the same projects and the same clients. So through the years, we've been going, I would say, very rapidly and significantly, because suddenly from 120 people, we reached 260 at the moment, 270, something like this. And among that, there were different positions growing in the practice, positions in BIM that we didn't even aware they exist 20 years ago, right? BIM is fairly new. So there was a BIM manager, firstly in London studio, supported by 2 coordinators in 2016. Then they've asked me, or I put up the decision that I will be the one coordinator, the first one for Wrocław studio, and the team was constantly growing and growing. So when I joined, there were just 3 BIM gigs operating on 140 people. Now we've got 10 of us, actually, BIM coordinators, head of BIM, BIM managers, looking after their smaller teams, and BIM technicians, actually, at the moment. So we've diversified the structure, and this is the steps undertaken based on the good and bad experience, right? Because firstly, we diversified the structure, introducing the role of a junior BIM coordinator and senior BIM coordinator, but it's hard to quantify who is juniorish or seniorish, right? So total change of the mindset, getting back to some more stabilized, let's say, structure, and introducing BIM technicians. But before, the first one in 2013, 11, whatever it was, a BIM manager, right? That's the one who knows the best how to do BIM in a practice. But then, obviously, he cannot serve as many projects as we have on the table. We needed to move on, hence his helpers, 2 right hands of this guy, to support him on a daily basis on projects and to allow him to work more about strategy or on strategy. And growing further, head of BIM as well, to allow someone to look after the smaller teams in the satellite studios, let me call them this way, and the head of BIM just working over the whole strategy of the company. And then this breakthrough, introducing the role of a BIM technician, just to diversify the structure, because if you are to join the practice and you think, okay, I am joining as a BIM coordinator, what is my career path? It's becoming a BIM manager? Fine, but there are only 2 BIM managers for whole practice, so there are hardly any chances. So that's why we diversified the structure and we introduced the role of a BIM technician, not BIM modeler, because BIM modeling becomes boring on a longer term. After half a year, people will quit potentially. So BIM technician captures a lot of different activities that you potentially may do, captures also the activities that a BIM coordinator does. So BIM technician is the one to learn from BIM coordinators. BIM coordinators are the ones to teach BIM technicians how to operate. They both click together and fulfill the roles of each other and help each other on a daily basis. When a BIM coordinator on a project is sick, is on leave, whatever, on holidays, the BIM technician is able to step in, supported by a BIM manager temporarily. And the same with BIM managers, and so on and so forth. So it works quite well, I have to say. And if you think it's a recipe for a success, 260 people, 3 studios, well, ultimately, it's not 260, right? It's 220, excluding all the admin, marketing, IT, and so on and so forth. So let's assume it's 220 architectural staff in general. You've got 3 studios, and you've got 11 people to support them, right? The math is easy here. Theoretically, you've got 1 for 20. And this is more or less what works for us in current setup that we have. Is this a recipe for success? I would say yes. Thank you, goodbye. Not really. It can be a good recipe for success for us, but actually it depends on the structure of a company and how you diversify the responsibilities and tasks, because it works for us, but it may not work for the other companies, right? So if you have a setup without any BIM coordinators or with a single role, someone who is fulfilling the BIM coordinator, BIM manager role, it may work like this. You may have multiple roles like that in your structure. You may have people devoted to this role purely and doing only BIM, right? You may have more people like this, depending on the size of the company. And finally, you can have whole teams supporting the others as a team of BIM stairs, right? BIM coordinators, BIM technicians, BIM managers. God knows what can be there. So what is the key then? Well, you will say the strategy, and that's true, but I would say something more down to earth. It's about job description, to my way of thinking. So that everyone knows that everyone knows that everyone knows what to do. Because people may expect different things from different BIM guys, and as long as I don't have it described specifically for particular roles, this might be misleading, right? There might be misunderstanding of those roles. So we've created those kind of job descriptions, and I wanted to ask you, who of you have such job descriptions in your companies for BIM coordinators? 1, 2, 3, some hands raised, which is really good, because at least you know what people do. And it's not about the content of the slide, who is doing what, but at least we've got the prescription of who is doing what. It's just the example of how this can be quantified and diversified. So we've got like a list of everyday tasks and responsibilities, but not only that, we've got a ready recipe for the recruitment process, because there are also minimum requirements, the limits of authority, who those roles report to, and where they are located. So it's easy then for us and for HR to prepare an advert that we are looking for someone new for these roles. So these are like everyday tasks and responsibilities, but besides that, we've got something special, an easy to be understood matrix of some extras. So on the one hand, you've got those special tasty things that the BIM coordinators and BIM technicians can work on and be specialized in. On the other hand, we've got a list of all the guys, right, which I've replaced by their roles, but relatively in the company, we've got their names given, and we know where to look for the expertise, which is easy for me as well, right? I'm looking for someone who is specialized in materials, in Power BI, in CGIs, in whatever, then I know who is operating on that. And what we make sure is given is also the fact that the role is covered by 2 people. So if one is missing and we hire another one, this will be captured. And it's not that I am allocating these roles and this special task. I'm asking them what they like to do. So they've got a chance yearly to speak out loud what is their expertise, what they would like to penetrate deeper and monitor and look after, and what they want to be specialized in. And this makes it work, because on one hand we've got dreams, on the other hand we've got needs of the practice. So everyone wants to upskill, everyone wants some diversity of the tasks that they are doing, everyone has their passions, they want to grow, they want to be promoted. On the other hand, the practice itself requires from them to work on the projects, to look after studio, to be generally present in the business, to work with the clients, the markets. Gluing both together gives us this perfect mixture to create a BIM team member, which on one hand is satisfied, on the other hand is valuable for the practice. This means those people are unique on the whole like practice. And just quickly minding the time, what to remember: diversifying the tasks to spice up life of a BIM team member, awareness of the responsibilities, allocating those special things, working as much on technical skills as on soft skills, and obviously there is no common receipt. Unfortunately, I cannot give you one that will work for you, but the strategy is crucial here. So actual market conditions, you have to be aware of them. Current position of your organization, you have to be aware of that. Project-specific needs as well, and then the appetite and talents, what talents people have, and your team members. So I will leave you with that to think about it for future and pass the microphone to Anne. This was the quickest possible way to deliver 84 slides in 15 minutes.